Before we start, I want to kindly thank UK Rob M for buying us a cuppa since the last video. It's always appreciated. Afternoon. Now this week it's something for the ladies. In addition to having me in the video, it is more skewed at the female audience because it's about fashion. Now you may be thinking, what do you know about fashion, St Harrison? Well, fuck all. However, I do have eyes. Now even though most of the fashion industry and the beauty industry is made up by homosexuals, they do have an eye for talent. And they also have an eye for beauty, just like us right-wingers. And many times have these two things converged, as we're about to find out, whilst mixed in with pictures of supermodels for the male audience. You're welcome. This is Dolce & Gabbana, who, despite all their mishaps as some may put it, are still extremely successful, proving that people just don't care about any of this nonsense. I'm making a Chinese woman eat Italian food with chopsticks, which the Chinese said was very culturally insensitive. However, they just deleted the post and said that the entire country of China was shit and they'd live very well without them, and called them the smelly Chinese mafia. Oh dear, not forgetting the slave earrings that they put out, which also made black people upset. They also said that IVF children are synthetic, and they also got in trouble over a poster featuring a man on top of a woman. However, none of them were black. However, because it looked like rape, they had to take it out. Oh, and a trainer that said I'm thin and gorgeous, because those two things are connected. And of course, he doesn't want a Japanese designer to succeed him, and called Selena Gomez ugly. Good lad. Now, Prada is an expensive brand from Milan. What a surprise. However, in 2018, they had a blackface controversy because they released a line of accessories called Prada Malia, which were small figurines, keychains and window displays featuring cartoonish characters. Oh dear, very dark black face cartoon characters with bright red lips. A civil rights lawyer, Chinyere Eze, spotted them in a New York store and posted about them online. Someone who shouldn't have been in New York. Prada quickly pulled the items, saying the characters were fantasy and not intended to reference blackface, and apologised. However, a formal complaint was triggered in New York City, with Prada reaching a settlement requiring hiring a diversity officer and diversity and racial equity training. I'm sure you can find them on eBay. Who's the boss? Hugo Boss, who joined the National Socialist Party in 1931, a couple of years before Hitler came to power. They also manufactured the SS uniforms, the SA uniforms and the Hitler Youth uniforms. However, he didn't design the SS uniforms. They used French prisoners of war and forced labourers to make all the clothes. After the war, he was classed as a follower. He was fined and temporarily stripped of his voting rights, and he died in 1948 before the company became the global fashion brand that it is today. In the late 2000s, Hugo Boss issued an apology, not for who they designed for, but for the forced labour. What a boss. Who's this lady from the black and white days? Well, it's Coco Chanel, who during the Nazi occupation had a relationship with Hans Gunther von Dinklage, which meant she could do what she wanted in Paris. She was also known as Agent F7124, codename Westminster, because she was a spy for the other side. She also tried to use the Nazi Aryanisation laws to take full control back of her perfume business, Parfum Chanel, because the company was largely owned by Jewish businessmen. Imagine that. She petitioned the Nazi authorities to strip them of their ownership, but by then the cheeky bastards had already transferred control to non-Jewish associates. After the war, she was questioned, however was never formally charged because she was also friends with Winston Churchill. Didn't do her any harm though, did it? Here's Karl Lagerfeld, the very famous German designer, with his cat Choupette, which he left £1.5 million to when he died. But anyway, what did Karl do wrong? Well, When he was asked about Adele, he said, "She's a little too fat, she has a beautiful face and a divine voice." He also said, "No one wants to see curvy women." He also criticised everyday body types, saying overweight women were fat mummies eating crisps in front of the TV. He said Coco Chanel wasn't ugly enough to be a feminist. And he also suggested that motherhood was primarily for women and not for men. He also said, if you don't want your pants pulled down, don't be a model. He criticised Germany's refugee policy, saying, "You cannot kill millions of Jews and then take in billions of their worst enemies afterwards. We'll move on from that one." He also said that same-sex couples adopting children was terrible. He called Heidi Klum too heavy and described Russian men as ugly and said Greeks and Italians had disgusting habits. However, he was still a boss. This is British fashion designer Phoebe Philo, who sells out within half an hour of releasing her stuff. However, despite that success, she apparently doesn't use non-whites on the runway, and this was called out and she was accused of racism. Can you believe it? When someone did call her out, she replied, "Does this mean I'm going to be forced to use black people?" Well, unfortunately Phoebe, it's the 2020s, of course you are. And then she was later forced to use fat people as well. I'm sure she's overjoyed, but she's still selling out. This is Jean-Paul Gaulin, a French perfume maker. While it's linked to fashion, he's not a designer, he just designs smells. But anyway, he got in trouble after a French TV interview when he described his work ethic, which I can't read out, but you can read for yourself. Now, he's saying he worked like that, which made him a success, when we all know that if you work like that, you won't be a success because they don't work. This is Dutch model Lara Stone, who is quite easy on the eye until she opens her mouth and you see her teeth. But anyway, she did something in 2009 which annoyed a fair subset of people. Yes, she upset the Sub-Saharans after blacking up for a photo shoot. She said it wasn't racist, they said it was. She didn't lose their jobs and they moved on to something else. This is John Galliano. Despite his ice cream seller surname, he is actually English-ish. He used to work for Dior. However, in 2010 and 2011, he did some things which caused him to get fired. Let's have a look at what he did, which was recorded outside a Paris cafe.
I love Hitler. People like you would be dead today. Your mothers, your forefathers would be gassed.
Oh my god. We have a problem.
With you? Yeah, I know.
My. He was arrested and later convicted in a French court for hate speech. Dior fired him and he was also dismissed from his own company. He received a suspended fine, which meant he didn't have to go to prison unless he re-offended. He later blamed it on alcohol and substance abuse and has issued multiple public apologies. Do we believe him? No. And as of this year, he is now working for Zara. There are many things that we hear that we know are not true, like stories of electric floors, bendy guns, and we need to have a quick look in Zara. There is no such thing as a quick look. Zara, the Spanish clothes shop, caused controversy back in 2007 when it had a handbag with an old-fashioned symbol on it. Naughty naughty. Of course, they had to withdraw it after certain people complained, and those certain people were not Hindus. Then, a while later, they released cowboy clothes for kids. Look at that sheriff's badge. To the surprise of no one, the same usual suspects complained. 999. Oh, Zara. So there we go, that's quite enough of that. Until next time, ta-ta for now. And remember, if you see someone fat outside, tell them they're fat. If you enjoyed this video and its excuse of mixing racism and good looking women, you can always buy us a cuppa on Ko-fi. The link is in the description below, and thank you in advance if you do.